In the last few years, we've seen a boom in online content relating to the historicity of Jesus, powered by creators such as Alex O'Connor, Religion for Breakfast, and Trey the Explainer, who have investigated details about Christ's life that were previously hidden behind dense layers of academic jargon. Among the most debated topics lies the question of Jesus' earliest depiction, which is what we're going to discuss today. This, of course, is not easy to answer, owing to one of the practices of the primitive church, that being aniconism. Aniconism is defined as the opposition to the use of icons depicting religious figures. This idea dominated the early Christian church. For this reason, among others, artwork portraying Jesus before the 3rd century is incredibly rare. So then, what is the earliest depiction of Jesus archaeology has found so far? At this point, those of you familiar with this genre of videos will point to the famous Alexamenos graffiti, a stone carving found in the Imperial Palace of Rome, chiseled by a man mocking an acquaintance of his, named Alexamenos, for worshipping Jesus, whose head has been replaced with that of a donkey's. The text reads something like, Alexamenos worships his god, and is dated around the year 200 AD. The Alexamenos graffiti is typically considered the earliest depiction of Jesus, though there is another contestant that I personally haven't seen many people discuss. Could this be the earliest depiction of Jesus Christ? This is the artwork I am talking about. It's a bloodstone gem with a drawing and 2 inscriptions, one in the front and the other behind. It measures to only 3 by 2.5 centimeters. But despite its small size, one can clearly picture what is being portrayed, a man being crucified. Its origins are uncertain, although it probably comes from somewhere in modern-day Turkey, Syria, or at the very least, the Eastern Mediterranean Sea. Biblical scholars place the artwork in the late 2nd century, perhaps as early as 170 AD. In the gemstone, Jesus is depicted as a nude man with long hair and a beard hanging on a T-shaped cross by 2 ropes hooked to each one of his wrists. And as a result, his hands and elbows drop loosely, just like his legs, which although rigid, seem to be free from any tying. He is looking to the left and his posture is similar to the previously mentioned Alexamenos graffiti. This atypical description calls for a step-by-step dissection. Perhaps the most shocking detail is the outline of the cross, carved as T-shaped rather than the typical Roman cross we're used to seeing. In reality, crucifixion in Christ's era was an affair that could involve many different forms that deviate from all cultural notions. Romans chose between 4 different styles of crosses. However, it's important to mention that while these crosses definitely existed in Roman times, the vocabulary to describe them was created later by Flemish historian Justus Lipsius, born in 1547. Now, the New Testament itself is not very specific about what type Jesus' cross fell into, though we can determine thanks to linguistic evidence in the Bible that it was probably the crux in Missa, or in simpler terms, a T-shaped cross, such as the one portrayed in the gemstone. The biblical narrative is pretty clear on its stance. Jesus was indeed nailed to the cross, as told by Mark 27:35. However, some scholars believe he may have been tied with ropes instead. In 1968, the remains of a man that lived during the times of Jesus were excavated in Jerusalem. They belonged to a man named John, whom although had the side of his foot nailed to the remnants of a wooden cross, exhibited no wounds on his hand, leaving researchers to the idea that he was probably tied instead. John's tomb is the only archaeological proof of crucifixion from antiquity. The logic goes that mass crucifixions involve too many victims, and therefore huge amounts of iron and time to nail each person to their cross, and therefore Jesus wasn't nailed purely for pragmatic reasons. Additionally, a nail hammered in the palm of a hand isn't enough to support a person's body. Ancient historians do not describe nailing to crosses until 70 AD, during the First Jewish-Roman War, when written records confirmed the existence of this specific method of execution. However, this is not the end of the story, as there is evidence to think that this practice was performed before then. The same term that was used by ancient historians during the First Jewish-Roman War is also used in earlier descriptions of crucifixions, such as by Philo, who lived during the same time as Jesus. This same Philo also witnessed nailing and crucifixions carried by Flaccus, the then governor of Egypt. If nailing was done in Egypt, then it is reasonable to assume that it may have also been carried out in nearby Judea. Ultimately, the answer is unclear, and I leave it up to the viewer to decide for himself. Indeed, it is extremely likely that Jesus was crucified nude. The Bible itself confirms it in John 19:23. After the soldiers nailed Jesus to the cross, they took his clothes. There's a reason why most paintings of the crucifixion portray his body completely naked, with the only covered part being around his groin, to appeal to our sensitivities and to the strict laws regarding purity in the church. The mineral used in this gemstone is bloodstone. This red-spotted dark green gem has an intimate relationship with the story of Jesus, as a folk tale holds that it was formed during his crucifixion, when drops of blood hit the green jasper at his feet. The bloodstone is also believed to hold healing properties, as New Age spirituality types affirm it realigns the chakras, provides safety, and even improves blood circulation. There is one last detail which can be easily brushed over, and that is the fact that Jesus is depicted as having long hair. Most early depictions of Jesus picture him as a typical Jewish boy, with a beard and short trimmed hair, because long hair was seen as foreign by Jews at that time, something Greeks and Romans did. The first long-haired Jesus is typically said to be the wall painting at the catacombs of Felix and Adoctus, dated around the late 4th century AD, making it 100 years younger than the gemstone. Therefore, it could be possible that this bloodstone is not only the first depiction of the crucifixion of Jesus, but also the first portrayal of a long-haired Jesus, and although it may be a little bit of a stretch, it could be the first portrayal of Jesus, period. Through the Inscriptions, whose translation from Greek have been recently revised by Roy Kutansky, we can get an insight of the beliefs of an ordinary follower of Jesus from the 2nd century. The front of the bloodstone is divided by 9 different lines and reads as follows: O Son, Father, O Jesus Christ, O crossbeam of the redeeming Son. The 3 central lines are still shrouded in mystery, as the only understandable word is Lamb, with the name Mary also appearing right in the middle of the inscription, although very fuzzily, which highlights the importance that the Virgin Mary held in the imagination of the early Christians. The carvings also feature a very early use of the Alpha and Omega symbols, which would later become inseparable with the image of Jesus himself. I found out about the existence of this particular gemstone on a 1-year-old Reddit thread, and was shocked to know not many people were talking about it. The articles I checked primarily focused on the translation of the inscriptions, rather than the significance of this find for the study of the historicity of Jesus and the New Testament. And this is why I thought it was so important to share what I had found. This video wouldn't be possible without the research done by S.P. Laurie on her article about the mysteries of the crucifixion gem, as well as Roy Kutansky's paper, The Magic Crucifixion Gem in the British Museum.